54% of all black people make less than a living wage. We have the highest number of poor people and the greatest gap in income equality than any industrialized country in the world today. Amen. And in 1968, you know the last sermon that Dr. King was going to preach? He had raised the issue, but he was going to preach it more fully if he'd have lived to be at Ebenezer that Sunday. This is what it's going to say. America is going to hell. If she does not use her vast resources to end poverty and make it possible for all of God's children to have the basic necessity of life. And he was going to use Jeremiah 5:27. They have become great and rich. They have grown fat and sleek. They judge not with justice. They the cause of the fatherless, and they do not defend the rights of the needy. This is what has become of my priests and the leaders of Israel. It's a national disgrace. You know about terrorism? Otto Schwarman at MIT says we commit attention violence against the poor. You don't even talk about poor. People say, well, these debates, you listen to debates, they don't say the word poor. They say we're fighting for people who are struggling, for those working to get in the middle class. You know, even the Democrats, the middle class, they want, some folks get poor. Middle class. And I said to one of my sisters, sometimes when I was a little smart, sarcastic, I said, let me tell you something. When these politicians, Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter. Because like Dr. King wrote, they didn't look at party. They challenge you on principle.
All right.
And so it doesn't matter. The moral movement has to challenge all people.
That's right.
That, you know, some people are not trying to get in the middle class. They are trying to simply make it on what rhymes with what Jesus rode into Jerusalem on. They're just trying to save that every day.
Every day. That's it.
It rhymes with. There are 14.7 million poor children in America today, 150 years after slavery. 6.5 million are extremely poor, 150 years after slavery. The number of poor children in this country exceeds the population of 12 United States states: Alaska, Hawaii, Idaho, Maine, Montana, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Vermont, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. If you take all the population of all those states, that's how many poor children we have, black and white, in this country, according to Mary Wright Edelman and the Center of the Children Defense Fund. And we know that if we just took 2% of our federal government and put it towards programs that work, we could eradicate 60% of that poverty tomorrow. And when we don't do that, that's a form of violence.
It is.
Scott King said, violence is not just when you kill somebody with a gun, but it's when you deny children an opportunity to grow. And so, we've got to look at what's going on in America. The top 1% of the U.S. wealth holders hold 38% of the economy's wealth. 10% of Americans control 74%, which means that only 25% of this economy is left for 90% of the people. That's a form of political, policy, psychological, social terrorism. Defunding public education. Cutting money to historically black colleges and universities. The fact that resegregation of our public schools is happening faster today than it was in the 1970s. That's a form of political violence. And to come to Alabama and have to stand here in this historic place and think about the shoes I'm unworthy to stand in. Because no matter what threats I've had, they're nothing like what they experienced. And to know when I come home to the birthplace of the movement, I stand in this pulpit tonight 50 years after selling. And we have less voting rights protection tonight than we had August 6, 1963. North Carolina has the worst voter suppression in the country, but they're testing it there. Because they believe they can get it through in a so-called moderate state, they can bring it right on down here to the South. They are rolling back. We won same-day registration and early voting and a lot of things that other southern states were beginning to think about. Now they've actually taken them away. They didn't stop us from doing it. They are now taking them away. after we've seen the results and how black and progressive whites and Latinos have used those to transform the political topography of the state. We look at the fact that just Friday, the Supreme Court took up another case. You know what they're studying right now? They're going to vote on whether or not to undo the one person, one vote philosophy in the law, Judge. In other words, there is a proposal going to the Supreme Court to say that no longer will you choose representatives by the population of a state or of a representative district, but instead you will choose a representative by who's registered to vote. Which means that black people would lose 20% of their representation, Latinos 54% of their representation. And the very fact that the Supreme Court opted to hear that.
You would listen to it.
Whether they lose or not, that's not the point.
Yeah.
That's political terrorism. Nobody gave us the right to vote. People died for it. People sacrificed for it. People paid for it. And the democracy, when you go after the right to vote, that is as violent as a coup d'etat. And then on top of that, when the Supreme Court passes the Citizens United and allows a corporation to be treated like a person, and then allows the corporation to give ungodly pornographic sums of money in order to buy the democracy. It's like a corporate takeover of democracy. And I tell folk all over who get all upset about who, same-sex marriage and who's sleeping with who, you need to just get over that because you don't know who sleep with who, know how. I tell some ministers, I say, when you start saying that nobody can come in your church until the ushers check what they did with last week, who they slept with, then I didn't listen to you. But until then, hush your mouth.
Okay.
Something between God and people and their pastor, and God shines his grace on the just and the unjust. But there is some sex you ought to be concerned about. It's talked about in the prophets, when the prophets said they go a-whoring after other gods. The sex that I'm concerned about is the sex between corporations and legislators and Supreme Court justices in the back room on the top of a bed pile of money. And when they finish having that intercourse, they produce the illegitimate policy. Have passed new restrictions on voting. Most all of the states that they have picked on have the highest African American turnout. And they're messing with us in the South because we are in the season of a possible third Reconstruction. We're in the season where truly the hands that once picked cotton, the grand and granddaughter, can now pick president. Because if 30% of the unregistered black people in the South are registered and vote, along with Latinos and progressive whites, then the solid South will be broken.
Want it?
And if you break the South, you break open the nation.
Yeah!
Because see, there are certain politicians that count on the South, because if you can count on a lock on the South, that gives you 160 electoral votes before any other state has voted. But if you break open Alabama, and if you break open North Carolina, and if you break open Mississippi, you don't have to break it all the way open. It's kind of like when you're cooking some collard greens. If you just slide the lid off a little bit, the aroma. And if we can break the solid South in Alabama just a little bit, then the aroma is going all over the nation. And those who want to live in the past know that. And so they can't stop this third Reconstruction, but they're trying to delay it, to slow it down. And so in the face of all, and then in the face of all this, we got one more problem. And that is, not only do we have black, brown, and white voters who won't vote, which is, the only word I know for that is one my grandmama called it trifling.
Trifling.
But then we got another problem. And that is when persons who have benefited from all the struggles, and all the blood, and all the sweat, and all the tears, and then they mess around